Hello, everyone. So, welcome back to the AN Education podcast. What Nathan and I are going to talk about today is how soft the industry has gotten and how we need to be authoritative if you want to actually get results with your clientele.
So, big topic. May ruffle a few feathers, maybe. I don't actually know what we're going to say, but as a
I
coach, as a coach, you know that you're the authoritative figure. Someone comes to you for your expertise. You need to be an expert in whatever you specialize in or whatever you said that you can do, don't you? Right? So we get a lot of coaches through the mentorship and through the hub where they're kind of asking questions about how do I become more authoritative after the first 6 weeks, right? That's that's fucking hard, right? Because you've already shown the client a side of you that isn't as authoritative. And if we kind of define authority, right? Let's define that first, I suppose. Because authority doesn't necessarily mean where you're a straight talking, no bullshit coach who just goes, you're doing this wrong, blah, blah, blah. You need to do this, X, Y, and Z. To me, that isn't so much authority. We need to kind of have elements of that in our kind of like arsenal, should we say? But to me, being the authority is knowing what you're doing, as simple as that. So, for example, right, at the start of your client's journey, when you get a client on a consultation call, right, and you ask them all the questions that you ask them and you find more out about that client, you see whether they're right fit, all that type of jazz, they sign up. They go through the consultation form and they answer all your questions. That then should give you the perfect background of this client so you know exactly what they need to do to get from A to B and then from B to C, right? Having the authority is you knowing exactly what that client needs to do, right? And lining that out or speaking that to them in a way what is understandable for the client, right? So it's not being someone who's no bullshit because people see authority as no bullshit. We need no bullshit at certain points. If a client's going off track, they need to know why, right? Simple. But at first, we don't necessarily need to be that kind of like standoffish figure. We need to be a figure of authority that knows what they're doing to create a successful structure for a client so they can adhere to it. That's authority, in my opinion, anyway.
So, the definition of authority is the power or right to give orders, make decisions, enforce rules, or control resources. So, if we're going to go off what you're saying there, mate, essentially, we know how to get a client from A to B to get to their goal. That client, to get to Z goal, has to follow that structure. So I think what's happening in the industry now is clients are not telling the coaches the truth. The coach is then trying to find some way of getting around the fact that the client's not adhering by trying to find out if they've got an underactive thyroid, if they've got gut issues, or they're stressed, when the simple answer is the client's not adhering. And as a coach, we should have the belief and knowledge in ourselves to go hold a mirror to the client. Like, people need to start taking responsibility for their actions. If a client's not sticking to the diet, they know they're not sticking to the diet. If you give them macros or a meal plan, steps, how many sessions do a week, client knows deep down if they're ticking it off or not. And if a client's not ticking it off or not, but then they're saying, I don't know why I've lost weight, but they're not telling you the truth. This is why understanding how calorie deficits work, how output works, how it is all just math, and if people are actually in a deficit, they will lose weight regardless of anything. That's where you've got the then authority to back up your decisions where you can go to a client, well, there's something happening here because you're not losing weight and you should be, and not being afraid to say that to them of the fear of them leaving. Because if a client leaves off the back of you telling them the truth, they were never going to stay for much longer anyway.
Yeah, I always use that saying, mate, don't I? Where I would rather a client leave because I've told them the absolute truth than me tiptoe around them and them leave anyway without getting a result. Because all they're going to do is speak, oh yeah, I was with Nathan and well, I didn't really do that well with him. He's not really that good of a coach. Or they'll say another thing like, well, I was with Nathan, but they probably wouldn't say this like, but they'll think it. They'll be like, but he kept telling me what I didn't want to hear. Because some clients don't actually want to hear the truth. But you can there's ways of doing this though as well, isn't there, mate? Like there's
Yeah.
ways of at speaking to a client, it's not like you're not sticking to it while you're not fucking sticking to it. It's kind of like using the data in front of you to create a picture to help the client understand that they are consuming more calories. And you and them need to work together to find out where. Yeah. Again, it could be coming from the client actually being afraid of being judged by you.
Mhm.
And then that is normally, that's a lot of the time the case, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And normally I would say that that's from bad rapport building at first. Yeah. Or maybe you coming across too authoritative at first, where you're too no bullshit. And then the client goes, "Oh, I can't go off track because I'll tell Nathan I've gone off track because if I do, he's gonna hand it to me in this check-in." Yeah.
I think you said it best. Like, I think it's like the most important thing when you start a consult call is talk about communication, the importance of communication. At the end of the day, as a coach, we just want to get the client the result that they're after, not the result that we want for them. I think this is something where coaches get a little bit caught up with it. It's like they see a potential of a client and they want to push them harder, but that means you're coaching a client for yourself, and you're not coaching the client for what they actually want to achieve. And if a client wants to lose 15 kilos, we can mathematically work out how long that would take to some degree, give or take, if the client is adherent. And that's what the client wants to lose. But the client loses 10 and then they're really happy, and then they want to learn how to maintain that physique and just improve on strength or whatever it may be. As a coach, we've got to put that 15 kilos to a side. And as you say, a lot of the time it's like making sure you're on the same page, the page as the client. Because there's nothing worse when you're wanting more from a client than they actually want to give, and then you come across as quote unquote authoritative, but authoritative in the wrong way. If you're trying to demand something from a client who doesn't actually want to achieve what you want to achieve, and sometimes goals change, but again, having the guts as a coach to go, do you actually want this or not? Because your actions right now are not aligning with what you want to achieve, and not just going, okay, let's try and be a little bit better next time. It's like gone with that bullshit. It's like you've got to make sure the client is accountable for what they want to achieve. But if the client goes, you know, something, Nathan, I just right now I just don't know if I can commit to what's needed for me to get there. And then you go, okay, cool, let's reestablish a goal then. Let's hold this as a maintenance phase. Let's improve on our training. Let's improve on our sleep or something like that. Have shift the focus. So again, you're still making the decision from an authoritative manner, but you're doing it in line with what the client actually wants, not with a goal that's unachievable for whatever reason that may be, which then means the clients always feel like they're failing, they're never going to leave because they don't feel like they're making any progress. When clients feel like they're not making any progress, they will leave. End of, because they're not going to be paying you 150 to 250 pound a month to not make progress.
And they're not doing that for you to say the same fucking thing in a
Yeah.
check-in every week. Because what you're saying is not working, but normally it's because of either you're not on the same page as them or you've not built up enough rapport at the start. That is honestly probably the two common things that we find. If you've not built up enough rapport and you've not set proper expectations from the start, or you're not on the same page as them and you want more than them, that's when they normally don't make progress. So a good way of setting expectations at the start in your startup video is this. Use this in whatever way you want. Is to set the two rules that I always set with every client. I always say I have two rules. The only two rules are you be open and honest in every bit of data that you track. And if you go off track, it's fine. You just let me know. Because then I can work with open and honest people. And two, you communicate. If there's a problem, you communicate. If it's a good thing, you communicate. If you're struggling, you communicate, and I'll communicate as soon as I can do. You can message me whenever in the week, but them are my two only and golden rules. Because if a client sticks to them two rules, can you work with them? Of course you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Them are the only two things that you need in a coach and client relationship, literally. Communication and honesty. So steal that one, take it with you, make sure you apply that because you will get better buy-in from your clients. They will understand that you are an open and honest person and they will be open and honest with that because it's all about building trust.
Yeah, it's about this honesty element of things. If a client's not happy, you want them to say, and you can't take that personally. Too many coaches now take things personally. It's like if a client doesn't like a training, an exercise they write in a program, it's like don't get emotional, just change it. The same with like nutrition and whatnot. Like again, it's not the plan that's the issue, it's the client's ability to follow through with the plan that's the issue. So again, it's nothing about you as a coach. Where you become a bad coach is if a client's asking you to change things and you're just ignoring it because you think you know best. There's so many ways to skin a cat on this way in this job. It does need to be done in the most quote unquote optimal way. Me and Nathan hate that word optimal because it just doesn't exist. But there is a more effective way to do things, and that's what the client's going to date over a long period of time. But at the same time, a client still needs to do what they need to do to get to the goal. So if a client needs to eat 1,800 calories to be able to be in a deficit for them to achieve the goal, they can't be eating 1,900 or 2,000 calories because it's a little bit easier for them. Otherwise, the goal has to change. And I think with the authority lacks in this industry now is that ability to call the client out saying, you're not doing what you need to be doing. And if a client goes to you, it's because they've got an underactive thyroid. It's not because you've got an underactive thyroid. It's not. It's you're eating over your food. Now, having underactive thyroid, having PCOS, having endo, having any kind of autoimmune condition can make things a little bit more challenging, but the facts are still the facts in regards to what needs to be done. And it's whether or not the client can adhere to that and commit to that process with what's going on in life right now. And as a good coach, that's what you should be asking is at this moment in time, can you commit to this? If not, let's change the goalpost. It's not trying to find an excuse for your client not losing weight due to some kind of medical condition which they are claiming to be the reason why they can't.
Yeah. I think a good example of this is a question we had in the AN Hub forum. So I'll read this question, I'll read you my response. So the question was by a coach. I have a question. I want to take a different approach with clients both new and existing, as I believe my current approach is too soft and dismissive, which is leading to lack of adherence and results. How would you approach this with existing clients? Would you reset everything and start from the beginning and set out new expectations? I tried a more honest approach with a client who's basically just tossing it off, and he gave his month's notice which I half expected him to. So my response was approaching this with existing clients is tough as they have already seen a side of you that isn't upfront. So I would approach this in a way of actually setting standards and expectations again. So, for example, it could be setting the expectation of checking in on time or setting the expectation of how much you're expecting them to lose each week based on the calories. Because remember, it's tough when a client hasn't seen you being upfront as they see it as an attack sometimes, which obviously we don't want. Another point is to challenge behaviors and not the individual. This is the most important point. So, for example, instead of saying something like, you're not committed this week, why haven't you done X, Y, and Z, etc., you could phrase this in a way like, over the last 3 weeks, we've missed our step target 5 days per week, and tracking has been inconsistent. Until you improve these behaviors, progress is likely to remain slow. So, this keeps the feedback data driven and makes it about the data rather than the client. And I also mentioned about clients will sometimes leave, but I'd rather a client leave. And I've been completely open and honest throughout the whole journey than tiptoeing around them trying to keep them happy. So as you can see though, like we had a coach asking us a question in the forum, in the AN Hub forum, which was about this very topic. Obviously, it's tough if you have not been open and honest and upfront at first and you've tiptoed around them. That's when it's hard because it's hard to win a client back round. There is ways of doing this and it is possible, but it's resetting expectations and using the data to help them understand that that's the reason that they're not making progress. Yeah, not actually anything else. It's what they're not doing. Yeah, or maybe what they are doing, i.e., over consuming, right? So you've got to use them like kind of against your client. I always say, and I mean that in a good way. I mean it to help them prove to them and them to understand that this is the reason why you're not progressing. Yeah.
There's something our friend Amy says in regards to like be a cause or take responsibility. And again, if you can let a client understand that what they're doing is the reason why they're not losing weight, or what they're doing is the reason why they're not gaining weight in the improvement phase, it means that it's nothing else other than their action. So they're in total control of what they want to achieve. It's not because of some medical illness or medical condition or something like this, where then they can go, well, I actually can't achieve this because of this. They're actually now in power of what they want to have an outcome to, which then is a very, very empowering thing. But a lot of people now, they don't want to take responsibility for their actions. They want to blame external outcomes. And as coaches, we don't want to aid that. We want to make sure people take responsibility. The same way Nathan and I take responsibility, if we've made a mistake within our coaching, if we've made any mistake in general in regards to our own physique transformations, like we take responsibility for that because at the end of the day, it's us who does the action. And that's where coaches need to get again, hold a mirror to clients' faces sometimes. And it's not in a negative way, excuse me, it's in a teaching way. As coaches, we need to be teaching our clients. So if a client goes, I'm not losing weight because of this, and you go, yeah, but you're having milk in your coffee. Oh, yeah, I am actually. How many coffees are you having a day? I'm having four. Well, it's holding a miracle. Well, look, the action of you putting milk in your coffee is now potentially putting you over your calorie intake. And most of these other little things that you've been doing every single day, which means on a week-to-week basis, you're actually not in the deficit that we thought you'd be in. So this is why the fat loss process is just taking a little bit slower. So you're not attacking them with it. You're just showing them the reasons why things are occurring. So then they can understand more. And then when they understand more, they can trust the process more. You build a better rapport. You might even have a little bit of laugh and joke about it because it's not that serious of a thing. But again, it's just holding a mirror to the face.
It's one of them as well, mate. Like I always say when I give a, I call them tough love check-ins. I
Mm.
got that off Beth, right? But call them tough love check-ins, right? I always say that to a client. I'm like, either at the start, I'm like, listen, this is going to be a tough love check-in. You
Hmm.
might not like some things that I'm going to say, but I say them because I want you to progress. And if you start with that, that already thinks gets the client going, all right, okay, he wants me to progress. So he's doing this in a constructive way. Yeah. And I always kind of like when a client's been open and honest as well, always highlight that they've been open and honest.
Hmm.
Yeah. And always highlight like, well done for being open and honest. I can work with open and honest people. That's what I say all the time.
Hmm.
Because then that reinforces that a client it's like, oh, he wants me to be open and honest. I can trust him because he's not going to judge me. He wants to actually help me. Yeah. What our coaches are going wrong is they are going to attack him.
Hmm.
That is it. Simple.
Yeah. Cool. Wrap up
So
there?
anything else, mate?
No, I think we wrap up there. I think we covered an
Yeah.
awful lot.
So if you've not seen, have you, am I lagging here, mate? I think I'm lagging. Am I?
Yeah, just wrap it up a little bit.
So if you've not seen already, obviously there's the AN Hub. You can become part of the AN Hub. Please just have a look at the sales page that we have through the link in our bio. That explains everything what's included in the AN Hub. You can message the AN Education Instagram page if you want any further information, and you can join today if you want to. And it's all for £99.99 per month. You get a shitload of value from that. Trust me.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the money, put it like that, guys.